Good.
I'm not a doctor, and I'm not cut out to be. I'm a data-loving social scientist, and I try to solve problems that hit me hard. It turns out that 40% of premature deaths in the US are the result of behaviors that can be changed. Let me break that down. If we could convince everyone to exercise regularly, eat a healthy diet, quit smoking, and get recommended cancer screenings, we could prevent 850,000 unnecessary premature deaths in the US each year. So how do we do that? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. It's what I study. But I don't want this to be a dry research talk. So let's have a little fun. I want to start out by telling you about an idea for helping people like Liz Lemon, the lead character on NBC's former hit show, 30 Rock. In case you aren't familiar with Liz Lemon's persona, let me give you a quick profile. She's a 30-something exec who works too much, exercises too little, and is generally a disaster when it comes to self-control. I'd like to make two plausible assumptions about Liz. First, assume she wishes she exercised more but lacks the willpower. And second, assume she has a thing for trashy novels, but feels guilty wasting her time reading junk. I'm going to tell you about an idea for solving both of Liz's problems that I call temptation bundling. The idea is simple. What if Liz only allowed herself to read trashy novels while exercising at the gym? She'd stop wasting time at home on literary garbage and start craving trips to the gym to find out what happens next in her latest thriller. Not only that, she'd enjoy her novel and her workout more combined. She wouldn't feel guilty reading the novel, and time would fly at the gym. Now, as important as it is to reduce wasted time and increase exercise, temptation bundling can solve lots of other dual self-control problems as well. For instance, imagine you crave juicy hamburgers, but you're also watching your waistline. And imagine you also have a difficult Aunt Tilly who you know you should spend more time with, but you don't really want to. What if you only allowed yourself to go to your favorite burger restaurant with Aunt Tilly? You'd eat fewer burgers when you should be dieting, and you'd see more of Aunt Tilly. There are a few other examples I can give you of this. For all the men in the audience, you'll particularly like this one. Imagine only allowing yourself to get a pedicure while catching up on old work emails. Or imagine only allowing yourself, for everyone, to listen to your favorite podcast while catching up on household chores. These are all examples of the ways that temptation bundling can help. But of course, a key question, as the slide previews, does it work? To find out, my collaborators and I ran an experiment. We recruited participants from the university gym across the street, Potruck Gym, who owned iPods and wanted to exercise more. And we randomly assigned them to one of two experimental conditions. Participants who were assigned to our temptation bundling group were given a loaned iPod preloaded with 4 tempting audio novels of their choice. These are books that it's really hard to put down once you get hooked, like the Da Vinci Code and the Hunger Games. We invited them to come to the gym and work out for 30 minutes while listening to the start of one of their novels. And then we told them if they wanted to hear what happened next in their novel, they'd have to come back to the gym, where we would be holding their iPod in a locked, monitored locker. Participants in our control group also completed a 30-minute workout at the start of our study. They also were encouraged to exercise more, but instead of receiving a loaned iPod, we gave them an equally valued gift certificate to Barnes & Noble. So the question is, what happened? Well, for the first 7 weeks of our study, the temptation bundling group exercised significantly more than the control group, which was great. Then along came Thanksgiving break. The gym closed, participants went home, probably ate a lot of turkey, apparently forgot about their novels, and when they came back, the effect was gone. On the one hand, this is neat, because it means that wanting to find out what happens next in your novel is driving our effects, because we know that cravings are best suppressed by forced separation. But it also means we have more work to do to make this behavior change stick. All right, we had one more question, and that was a question that Liz Lemon's profit-hungry boss, Jack Donaghy, depicted here, would very likely ask, and that was, does anyone value temptation bundling? Or in other words, would anyone pay for it? To find out, at the end of our study, we invited participants to pay us for a new service. We told them we'd be happy to lock their own iPods containing tempting content at the gym for a month so they could only access them when exercising. In other words, would people pay us to take away a possession they could otherwise use as they please so they could only access it under strict supervision? Amazingly, more than 60% of participants eagerly signed up for this program, suggesting there might be a real market for companies like Netflix, let's call it Gymflix, that let you set aside certain TV shows for gym-only access. This could be helpful not only for people's waistlines, but also for public health much more broadly. Okay, so I've told you about an insight we can use to promote physical activity and temptation bundling, but I've also highlighted that a key challenge is figuring out how to change behavior for good. I've done some other research on how to create habits that really stick. And to describe that to you, I want to ask you to imagine two people who both want to exercise more. Let's say Liz Lemon and her eccentric colleague, Jenna. Imagine that they both sign up for a month of sessions with a personal trainer at the gym, in the hopes that after this month, they'll have created a lasting exercise habit. Imagine that arbitrarily, they end up with trainers who have different philosophies. Jenna's trainer is all about routinization. Jenna's trainer asks Jenna, when do you prefer to exercise? And Jenna says, 7 a.m. Her trainer says, great. We'll meet at the gym 3 times a week at 7 a.m. for the next month, and by the end of our sessions, you will have a lasting exercise habit. Liz's trainer, on the other hand, thinks flexibility is key to habit formation. She also asks Liz when she prefers to work out, and Liz says 7 a.m. But Liz's trainer says, we're going to meet at different times on different days, 3 times a week, sometimes 7 a.m., but sometimes life will get in the way. We'll be flexible. By the end of the month, you will have built a lasting habit. So the key question is this: who is right? Which person will have a more lasting habit at the end of the month of sessions with a personal trainer? Will it be routine Jenna or flexible Liz? I'll let you noodle on that for a minute, but let me tell you about why I thought that maybe routines would be effective. I'd done some other research showing that when people make concrete plans, it can help them with follow-through. We studied this in one context where we were trying to get people to get flu shots. We sent out different reminder mailings inviting people to come to a free on-site flu shot clinic at their workplace, and some mailings were just that, a reminder, and others included a simple planning prompt, a prompt to write down the date and time when you intended to get your flu shot. Now note that these were not appointment cards. They're just a prompt to write down the date and time in the privacy of your own home. But we thought that they might increase follow-through by getting people to think concretely about their plans, embedding them more firmly in memory, and associating a time cue with that call to action. We found that they costlessly increased follow-through on flu shots by 4 percentage points. And in another study, using a very similar design of reminders with thousands of patients who were overdue for colonoscopies, we found that we could costlessly increase colonoscopy follow-through rates significantly with these planning prompts. Okay, so can we use these kinds of planning prompts to help people form lasting habits? That's the question I posed earlier when we were thinking about Liz Lemon and her eccentric colleague, Jenna. To find out the answer to this question, we ran another study, and this time we ran it at a Fortune 500 company. We recruited 2,500 employees who wanted to exercise more to join a 4-week program. Everyone who signed up told us the 2-hour workout window when they preferred to go to the gym, and we started sending them reminders 15 minutes before the start of that workout window. Here comes the science. We randomly assigned these people to one of 3 experimental conditions. Participants in the first group, the control group, just got our reminders. That was it. Participants in the second group got an experience that was based on Liz's trainer's flexible philosophy. They were paid either $3 or $7 for exercising, regardless of when they did it. Finally, participants in our routine condition modeled on Jenna's trainer's philosophy, were only paid $3 or $7 if they exercised at that planned time that they had told us at the start of the study. So how'd this work out? Well, for the 4 weeks of the intervention period, we found that the more we paid people to work out, and the easier we made it to collect payments, the more they exercised. But that's not interesting. What we wanted to know was if we'd convinced 2 people to exercise about the same amount, one always at the same time, and the other at different times that varied, who would form a more lasting habit after our 4-week intervention? And we can see that by zooming in on 2 groups in our study. The group that we paid $7 to go to the gym always at the same time, and the group we paid $3 to go to the gym whenever they wanted. When we looked to see who exercised more after our intervention period, we were really surprised to find it was the flexible group. You might be surprised too, and you might be wondering, why is that? So were we. So we looked at our data, and here's what we found. It turns out that the routine folks like Jenna did in fact form a more robust habit around exercising at their planned time that lasted after the intervention. But if they didn't make it at their planned time, they didn't make it at all. Whereas the flexible folks like Liz, they figured out what to do if something got in the way of their plans and they still went to the gym. So what's the takeaway? Well, planning can help us with follow-through, but it seems to be really important to learn to roll with the punches and be flexible when life gets in the way of your plans if you want to build a lasting habit. Okay, at this point, I've told you about a few key strategies that we can use to improve health behaviors. We've talked about temptation bundling, we've talked about planning prompts for follow-through, and we've talked about how we can help people form habits by encouraging them to engage in physical activity at routine times, but rewarding them even if they do it out of sync with their schedules. Okay, so I shared some of these ideas a few years ago at a large company, and I got a great question from a manager who looked a lot like Liz Lemon's boss, Jack Donaghy. He asked a great question that Jack might have asked too, and he said, "All right, I'm sold. We should be using these strategies to get our employees to make healthier decisions. But when should we use these strategies? When is the right time?" Well, first answer that might have popped into your head might be the one that's on the slide behind me. Maybe you thought of New Year's. That's what I thought of. We all know that people redouble their efforts to achieve their goals at the start of a new year. And in fact, 40% of Americans, including Liz Lemon, make New Year's resolutions. There are many reasons for this, including a herd mentality. My collaborators and I, though, have shown that at least part of what's going on is that at the start of a new year, we feel like we have a clean slate. Last year's failings feel far behind us, and we feel new, improved, and more capable than before. It turns out that it's not just at the start of a new year when we have those fresh start feelings. We feel those fresh start feelings at the start of lots of new cycles, like the beginning of a new week or a new month, following holidays or following birthdays. In one study, we showed that the very same undergraduates are much more likely to visit the gym at the beginning of a new week, month, year, following holidays, at the start of a new semester, and following birthdays, with the notable exception of 21st birthdays, and I'll let you speculate as to why that might be the case. We see the very same patterns around fresh starts when we look at when it is that people search for the term diet on Google, and we also see these patterns when we look at when it is that people create goals on a popular goal-setting website, stick.com, where you can put money on the line that you'll forfeit if you fail to achieve your goals. And these spikes at fresh start moments don't just occur for health-related goals. We see them when we look at goals around anything, savings, education, and so on. So this suggests that maybe we could use fresh starts to encourage good behavior. To figure this out, we actually moved outside of the domain of health and ran an experiment in savings. To explain, let's imagine Liz turns 35 in 2 months and isn't saving for retirement. It's not such a large leap to take. All right, so would it be more effective to encourage her to start saving by inviting her to start saving now or after her next birthday, or now or in 2 months? We thought the first might be more effective because it highlights this upcoming fresh start. And we tested this with about 2,000 employees who weren't saving for retirement and had birthdays coming up at all different points in time. What we found is that that fresh start mailing increased savings rates significantly for the 9 months of our follow-up period, which was really exciting. So this may be due to fresh starts, or maybe it's because of the salience of aging induced by reminding people about their birthdays. But either way, it suggests there's real opportunity here to use fresh starts for good. Okay, where does this all leave us? Well, first of all, we're clearly inching closer to solving the problem of behavior change for good. And now that you know about fresh starts, you can look for the next one in your life and use it to motivate yourself to pursue whatever goal has been eluding you. Coupled with the other strategies I've told you about today, you should feel well prepared to get wherever it is you want to be. But what I find really exciting about all of this work is that with ideas like these, and there are many more where these come from, if we can just disseminate them widely, we actually have a shot at making a dent in the 40% of premature deaths each year that are a result of behaviors that can be changed. And if we can do that, then there will be fewer and fewer families like mine that face catastrophic losses. And there will be more and more families like mine too that have happy endings, more parents who live to become grandparents. For me, really, that's what this is all about. Thank you.